My son Caleb called me at 4 in the morning. The phone vibrated against the nightstand with that specific insistence that only accompanies bad news or desperate lies. I already knew, before I even answered, that he was coming to ask me for something. It was always like this. 8 years married to Brittany, and my son's calls only arrived when they needed money. Never to ask how I was doing, never to invite me to dinner, always to open his hand and demand that I fill that bottomless void they called married life. I answered because I am still his mother, because an idiotic part of me always hopes that this time will be different. His voice arrived broken, drowned in the panic of bad acting. "Mom, Brittany is in the hospital. It is serious. I need $40,000 right now, or they are going to leave her to suffer all night. The doctors say that without the payment, they cannot do the procedure. Mom, I am begging you." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Outside it was still dark, and my bedroom smelled of the lavender hand lotion I had applied before sleeping. I heard his accelerated breathing on the other side. Waiting, calculating. Then he said something that made all my 67 years of tiredness turn into pure ice inside my chest. "If you do not send the money in an hour, I am going to put all the hospital bills in your name. All the debt. Everything. You decide if you want your daughter-in-law to suffer because of your selfishness." I told him with a calmness that even I did not recognize. "Call her precious mother." I hung up. I turned off the phone. I rearranged the pillow and closed my eyes. I did not feel guilt. I did not feel fear. I felt something I had not experienced in years. A boundary. Because this was not the first time, nor the second, nor the 10th. This was the most recent chapter of a story that began the day Caleb brought Brittany home and told me she was the woman of his life. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the understanding mother-in-law, the one who does not interfere, the one who accepts with a smile and a hug the woman her son chose. Brittany arrived in a cream-colored dress and shoes that cost more than my monthly rent. Perfect smile, flawless nails. She hugged me and said, "Mrs. Margaret, what an honor to meet the woman who raised such a wonderful man." I melted like all the idiotic mothers who want to believe their son chose well. But there was something in her eyes, something calculating, something cold beneath all that rehearsed sweetness. The wedding was 6 months later. I paid half because Caleb asked me with that little boy voice he used when he wanted something. "Mom, Brittany's family is very big. We need help. It is just this one time. I will pay you back." I put up $18,000 from my savings, money I had saved by cleaning houses for 20 years, money that was for my old age, for some emergency. To not be a burden, I never saw a cent back. When I asked months later, Caleb looked at me as if I were a heartless loan shark. "Mom, we are just starting out. We have expenses. Are you seriously going to charge me? You are my mother." And I shut up. Because that is how it worked. I gave. They took. And if I asked for something back, I was the bad guy. After that came the loan for the car. $8,000 because Brittany's car broke down and they needed a new one. Not used. New. Because Brittany could not be seen in a second-hand car. After that came the computer. After that, the furniture. After that, the anniversary trip to Cabo San Lucas that I financed while they uploaded photos to social media with drinks in hand and sunsets in the background. "Thank you to life for these blessings," Brittany wrote in the post. Not a single mention of me. And meanwhile, Catherine, Brittany's mother, the precious mother, bought them designer clothes, paid for dinners at expensive steakhouses, gave them money for their whims, and every time I said I could not give more, Caleb would throw the same poisoned phrase at me. "Brittany's mom actually knows what it means to support her daughter. You only know how to make excuses." I worked until I was 65. I cleaned offices. I babysat. I did other people's laundry, all to give Caleb an education, so he would not lack anything. And now he was comparing me to a woman who inherited her dead husband's money, who never worked a day in her life, who handed out $100 bills like someone handing out candy because she never knew what it cost to earn them. But I kept giving. Because he was my son. Because I was afraid of losing him. Because every time I said no, he disappeared for weeks. He would not answer calls. He would not reply to text messages. And I would stay awake at night wondering if I had been too hard. If I should have given him that money. If it was selfish to want to keep something for myself. Last year, I lent them $12,000 for the down payment on their condo. Caleb swore that this time was different, that they were going to be responsible, that they would pay me in monthly installments. We signed a paper. I kept it in my drawer as if it were worth something, as if my son's word still meant something. 3 months passed. Not one payment, not one apology. When I sent him a message, he replied, "Mom, do not be insensitive. Brittany lost her job. We are having a hard time." Brittany lost her job, but she kept buying designer handbags. She kept going to the salon every week. She kept posting photos in restaurants I could never afford. And Catherine kept sending messages to Caleb. I saw them once on his phone when he left it at my house. "Son, if you need anything, I am here." Not like other people who only know how to count pennies. That was me. The one who counted pennies, the one who did not know how to give, the selfish one. Until that early morning, until that call, until that threat. "I am going to put all the accounts in your name," as if I were a resource, a credit card with legs, a bank account with feelings that could be ignored. And something inside me broke, or maybe it fixed itself. I do not know. But when I hung up that phone, I knew I was not going to take a step back. I knew he had crossed a line, that this time I was not going to yield. That call at 4 a.m. was not an emergency. It was extortion. And I had just closed the bank. I stayed staring at the ceiling. The shadows of the trees outside moved against the wall, and for the first time in 8 years, I took a deep breath without feeling that I owed anything to anyone, without feeling that I had to justify why my money was mine, why my peace was worth more than their invented drama. I closed my eyes, and I slept like I had not slept in years. I woke up at 9 a.m. with 22 messages on the phone. I saw them from the lock screen, all from Caleb, some from unknown numbers, one from Catherine. My stomach tightened for a second, that ancient sensation of fear, of guilt, of maybe I made a mistake. But I took a deep breath and opened the messages. The first from Caleb said, "Mom, I cannot believe what you did. Brittany is suffering and you are sleeping peacefully. You are a horrible person." The second one said, "Brittany's mother had to pay everything, $40,000 that she did not have, but at least she actually has a heart." The third, "Do not talk to me again. I do not want to know anything about you. I am going to tell everyone what you did." I kept scrolling down. Messages from numbers I did not recognize. "Mrs. Margaret, I am Angela, a friend of Brittany. I cannot believe there are such cruel mothers-in-law. Your daughter-in-law could have died. Another one. This is unbelievable. You should be ashamed. Poor Brittany." And then the one from Catherine. "Margaret, I always knew you were a selfish woman, but this surpassed everything. My daughter almost died because of your fault. I hope you can sleep with that on your conscience." I read every message with my coffee in hand, sitting in my small kitchen, with the sun coming through the window. And I felt nothing. Well, that is a lie. I felt relief, because everything was turning out exactly as I expected. The drama, the accusations, the attempt to make me feel like the villain. It was the same old script, only this time I was not going to act my part. I did not answer a single message. I drank my coffee, I ate my toast, I showered, I got dressed. I went out for a walk in the park like every Wednesday, and I let them scream into the void. The morning was cool. The birds were singing in the trees. There were children playing on the swings, young mothers pushing strollers, and me there, walking with my worn-out sneakers and my old sweatshirt, feeling freer than I had felt in years. But by 2 p.m, the phone would not stop ringing. Now they were calls. Caleb, unknown numbers, Catherine again. I rejected them all, until a message arrived that made everything change. It was from a friend in the building. "Margaret, I do not know if you already saw it, but Brittany posted something about you on social media. It is going viral. You should see it." I opened the app. I do not use social media much, but I have an account. I searched for Brittany's profile, and there it was. A photo of her in a hospital bed, wearing a white gown, no makeup, a face of suffering perfectly rehearsed. The text said, "Last night I lived the worst experience of my life, a medical emergency that could have cost me everything. My desperate husband called his mother asking for help. $40,000 for the procedure that would save me. Do you know what she did? She hung up. She left me here suffering. Luckily, I have a mother who actually knows what unconditional love is. Thank you, Mom, for saving my life. There are people who do not deserve to be called family. It had 4,000 reactions, 2,000 comments. I read them, each one worse than the last. What a horrible mother-in-law. That lady has no soul. Poor girl. What a nightmare of a family. Envious mothers-in-law are the worst. Brittany, you deserve better. That selfish old woman should be in jail. Someone had even found my full name and put it in the comments. Margaret Davis, my profile picture, my email address, all public, all exposed. People started sending messages to my inbox. Insults, threats, death wishes. I hope when you are sick nobody helps you. Miserable old woman, I hope you suffer double. People like you do not deserve to have children. They should take away your pension. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage, at the blatant lie, at the public manipulation, at the cheap theater designed to destroy me socially. Brittany was never in danger of death. I knew it in that moment with absolute clarity. This was a setup, a show, an emotional extortion amplified by social media. But I had no proof. I only had my word against that of a woman crying in a hospital gown, and in the court of the internet, I was already condemned. I thought about defending myself, about writing my version, about telling the 8 years of financial abuse, the loans never returned, the constant manipulations. But I knew it would be useless. The people had already decided I was the villain, Brittany was the victim, and nothing I said would change that. I closed the app. I blocked Brittany. I blocked Caleb. I blocked Catherine. I blocked all the unknown numbers. I turned off notifications. And I poured myself a glass of wine at 3 in the afternoon because that day deserved it. I sat on my small balcony. I looked toward the street. I saw the neighbor from the 4th floor watering her plants, the man from the 1st floor washing his car. Normal life, simple life, while I was being crucified digitally by people who did not know me, by people who only saw one version, the version Brittany wanted them to see. But the universe had not finished with me. At 5 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there was Catherine, with her pale pink dress, her designer sunglasses, her expensive perfume that arrived 3 yards before she did, her brand name bag hanging from her arm like a trophy. She looked at me with disgust, with contempt, as if I were trash on the sidewalk. "I came to tell you in person what I think of you," she said with a sharp voice. "You are a disgrace of a mother, a disgrace of a human being. My daughter could have died last night and you sleeping like it was nothing. I had to take $40,000 from my savings account. $40,000, Margaret, money that was for my future. But I did it because I actually know what it is to be a mother. I actually know what it is to love." She made a dramatic pause, waiting for me to crumble, for me to ask for forgiveness, for me to beg. She continued, "And do not think this stays here. Everyone in the building already knows what you did. I already spoke with Mrs. Helen from the 5th floor, with the couple from the 2nd, with the doorman. Everyone is horrified. Nobody can believe that a woman so cold exists, so cruel, so heartless." I looked at her in silence. I let her finish her speech. I let her empty all her poison. And when she stayed quiet, expecting my reaction, my apology, my crying, I told her, "Catherine, I hope you recover your money, truly, because something tells me you are going to need it." I closed the door. I put on the chain lock, and I heard her scream from the other side. "This is not going to stay like this. Everyone is going to know what kind of person you are. You are going to regret it." I sat on the sofa. I finished my glass of wine, and I waited. Because I knew something they did not know. I knew that lies have short legs, that the theater has a limit, and that when one builds a trap for another, sometimes one falls into it oneself. It was only a matter of time. The clock struck 11 at night when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again. Another number. Ignored. Third call. I answered because something in my stomach told me this was different. It was a young woman's voice. "Nervous, Mrs. Margaret Davis?" I tensed up. "Yes, that is me. This is Center City General Hospital. I am calling because your name appears as the emergency contact for Caleb Davis. We need you to come. There was an incident. My blood froze. What happened? Is he okay? The woman hesitated. Ma'am, it is better if you come. I cannot give you more information over the phone. She hung up. I stayed standing in the middle of the living room, with the phone in my hand, with 1,000 thoughts crossing my head. What if it was true? What if now something real had happened? What if my son was hurt and I had been ignoring calls all night? I got dressed in 2 minutes. I called a taxi. The way to the hospital was eternal. 20 minutes that felt like hours. I watched the empty streets through the window, the traffic lights changing color, the city asleep, and my head would not stop. Images of Caleb as a child, Caleb as a teenager, Caleb before Brittany, when he still hugged me, when he still said mom with affection and not with demand. I arrived at the hospital. The automatic doors, the smell of disinfectant, the cold white lights of the hallway. I approached the front desk. I am here for Caleb Davis. They called me. The nurse checked the computer. She frowned. One moment. She made a call. Spoke in a low voice. Hung up. Someone is going to come speak with you. Please, wait there. She pointed to some green plastic chairs. I sat down. There were 3 other people waiting. An older man with his head in his hands. A young woman crying in silence. A guy in work coveralls sleeping uncomfortably across 2 chairs. 10 minutes passed. 15. 20. Me twisting my purse between my hands, preparing myself for the worst. Then he arrived. Not a nurse, not a doctor, a police officer. Full uniform, shiny badge, serious expression, Missus. Margaret Davis? I nodded. My heart was beating so fast I felt everyone could hear it. I am Officer James Miller. We can talk in private. He took me to a small room. 2 chairs, a table, a window with a view of the parking lot. He closed the door. Ma'am, your son is not injured. There was no accident. I stood looking at him without understanding. Then why am I here? The officer sat down. He took out a notepad. I am here because this morning we received a complaint. A complaint regarding fraud, extortion, and identity theft. The words arrived slowly, as if my brain could not process them all together. Your son Caleb and your daughter-in-law Brittany are under investigation. This morning, after you refused to send them money, they contacted Brittany's mother, Catherine Miller. They told her that Brittany was in this hospital, that she needed emergency surgery, that it cost $40,000. Catherine paid. She transferred the money directly to an account in Caleb's name. The officer paused. He looked at me. The problem is that Brittany was never in this hospital. There was never any emergency. There was never any surgery. Everything was invented. I felt the floor move beneath me, but I saw the photo, Brittany in the hospital bed, with the gown on. The officer nodded. We know. That photo was taken in a hotel room. They bought a hospital gown online. They staged the scene. They uploaded it to social media to make the story more credible. I could not breathe. Catherine called the hospital this afternoon to ask about her daughter's condition, to see if she could visit her. Here they told her there was no patient with that name, that she had never been admitted. Catherine insisted. She said she had paid $40,000 for a surgery. The hospital contacted administration. Administration called the police. And here we are. I covered my face with my hands. 8 years suspecting. 8 years feeling that something was not right. And now the confirmation. There is more, said the officer. He opened his notebook. When we started investigating, we found a pattern. Your son and your daughter-in-law have done this before. 3 times in the last 2 years, always the same story. Brittany with a medical emergency. Always asking relatives for money. Twice from Brittany's mother, once from an aunt, another time from a cousin. I felt nausea. In total, they have scammed approximately $120,000. And here comes what involves you directly. The officer looked at me with something that looked like compassion. We found that your son opened 2 credit cards in your name, without your consent, using copies of your identification. One card has a debt of $18,000, the other $23,000. Both are about to go to collections. Illegally, you appear as the responsible party. The world stopped. $41,000. In my name, without me knowing. That is identity theft. I said with a broken voice. Exactly. It is a federal crime, and we have proof. Invoices, online purchases, trips, restaurants, everything charged to those cards. Everything while you probably did not even know they existed. I struggled to process my own son, my blood, stealing from me, burying me in debt, destroying my name, my credit, my future. And Brittany? I asked. The officer sighed. Brittany is the one who planned everything. We have text messages between her and Caleb, conversations where she tells him exactly what to say, how to manipulate, who to ask. We found a document on their computer, a list with names of family and friends, how much money each one has, how easy it would be to convince them. Your name was there, with a note that said, "Guilty old woman, easy to manipulate, has savings." The tears burned me, but I did not let them out, not in front of him. There was a plan, continued the officer. They were going to gather enough money and disappear, move to another country, leave all the debts behind, leave the families dealing with the banks, with the debt collectors, with the lawsuits. They had plane tickets purchased for the day after tomorrow. Destination Costa Rica. Costa Rica. They were going to flee, leave me with $41,000 of debt, destroy my credit, ruin my last years of life, and disappear as if it were nothing. This morning, after Catherine filed the complaint, we obtained a warrant to review their bank accounts, to freeze their assets, and to detain them if they tried to leave the country. At this moment, your son and your daughter-in-law are being interrogated at the central station. They are going to be formally charged with fraud, extortion, identity theft, and conspiracy. The officer closed his notebook. I need you to come tomorrow to the station to give your statement, to sign documents, to press formal charges for the identity theft. We also need you to bring any document you have, receipts, messages, emails, anything that demonstrates the pattern of financial abuse. I nodded without being able to speak. Mrs. Davis, are you okay? Do you need me to call someone? I shook my head. I am fine. I just need a moment. The officer stood up. He gave me his card. I am very sorry you are going through this, but you did the right thing by not sending them that money. If you had given in, you would now be in a much worse situation, and they would already be out of the country. He left the room. He left me alone with my thoughts, with the crushing truth, with the weight of everything. My son was a criminal. My daughter-in-law was a con artist, and I had been blind for 8 years, giving them money, believing their lies, blaming myself for not giving more. I left the hospital at 2 a.m. The cold air hit my face like a necessary slap. I sat on a bench outside, under a yellowish light that flickered. There was a cleaning man sweeping dry leaves. An ambulance arrived with sirens off. The world kept turning while mine had stopped completely. I took out my phone. I looked at all those blocked messages, those insults, those threats, all those people hating me for not falling into a trap, for not being the victim that Caleb and Brittany needed me to be. I felt something strange in my chest. It was not sadness. It was not anger. It was something deeper, something definitive. It was the sound of a bond breaking, that invisible bond that tied me to my son since he was born, that bond that made me justify everything, forgive everything, endure everything. It broke, and I felt it physically, like when a taut rope snaps, like when something that had been cracking for years finally breaks completely. I called a taxi. The driver tried to make conversation. I told him I was tired. He respected my silence. I arrived at my building. I climbed the stairs slowly. Every step weighed more than the last. I opened the door of my apartment. Everything was as I had left it. The wine glass half drunk, the kitchen light on, my small and quiet life waiting for me. I sat on the sofa. I did not turn on the television. I did not play music. I just stayed there, in the silence, processing. $41,000 in debts I did not make. 8 years of lies. A son who saw me as an ATM. A daughter-in-law who had calculated until the last detail of my destruction, and I had been about to fall. If I had sent those $40,000 that morning, they would now be in Costa Rica, free, rich, and I would be buried in $81,000 of debt that I could never pay. I thought about Catherine, about her face of superiority when she came to scold me, about her speech on being a good mother, about unconditional love, about the $40,000 she had paid with such pride. $40,000 that never went to any hospital, that went directly to Caleb's account, that were going to be used to flee and leave her in ruin just like me. And I wondered if she already knew, if the police had already spoken with her, if she had already understood that her precious daughter was a professional liar. Dawn broke without me noticing. The light coming through the window, the noise of the neighbors starting their day, someone dragging furniture upstairs, the doorman whistling downstairs. I was still on the sofa, in the same clothes, with my eyes dry from being open so long. I forced myself to get up, to make coffee, to eat something even though I was not hungry. Because life does not stop, because tragedies do not give you permission to pause. At 9, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Helen, the neighbor from the 5th floor. The same one who, according to Catherine, already knew everything and was horrified with me. I hesitated to open, but something made me turn the knob. Helen was there with a bag of sweet bread and a face of apology. "Margaret, I need to talk to you. Can I come in?" I let her in. She sat in the same place where I had spent the night. She put the bag on the table. "Last night I saw your daughter-in-law's post. Catherine came to talk to me. She told me the whole story. She told me you were a cruel woman, that you had left Brittany to die, that you had no heart." She paused. I said nothing, just waited. But something did not add up for me. "I have known you for 12 years. Margaret, I know how you are. I know you helped the lady on the 2nd floor when her husband died, that you paid for her groceries for 3 months. I know you watch the kids from the 4th floor without charging when their parents have emergencies. I know who you are." Helen took out her phone. So, I investigated. I searched for information on Center City General. I called a friend who works there. I asked about Brittany. She told me there was no record. None. So I searched more. And I found news. From this morning. About a couple detained for fraud. She showed me the screen. There it was. A small article in a local digital newspaper. Couple arrested for fake medical emergency scam. Caleb Davis, 35, and Brittany Miller, 32, were detained after deceiving relatives with stories of non-existent illnesses. It is estimated they defrauded over $120,000. There was a photo. Caleb and Brittany, with their hands cuffed, getting into a patrol car. The faces I knew so well now looking different. Guilty, caught, destroyed. Helen put away her phone. "Margaret, I came to apologize for having listened to Catherine, for having doubted you even for a second. And I came to tell you that I already spoke with other neighbors. They already know the truth. They already saw the news. Nobody blames you. Everyone is shocked." I thanked her, with a broken voice, with tears that finally could come out. Helen hugged me. "You are going to be okay. This is horrible right now, but you are going to be okay." She left after forcing me to eat a pastry, to promise her that I would call if I needed anything. And I stayed there with the digital newspaper open on my phone. Reading the full article, authorities informed that the accused planned to flee the country after obtaining fraudulent funds from close relatives. Plane tickets and documents were found evidencing a pattern of criminal behavior of at least 2 years. It was also discovered that Caleb Davis committed identity theft against his own mother, opening lines of credit without consent and accumulating more than $40,000 in debts in her name. There it was, my name unmentioned, but my story exposed. My pain turned into news. My family destroyed in 3 paragraphs. I kept reading. Catherine Miller, mother of Brittany, was the first to file the complaint after discovering that her daughter's medical emergency was false. Miller declared having handed over $40,000 under the belief that her daughter was in danger of death. The district attorney is evaluating presenting additional charges for use of social media to commit fraud. I searched on social media. Brittany's post had been deleted. Her account was deactivated, but the comments lived in screenshots, in publications of other users. The people who had insulted me were now writing different things. I cannot believe they fooled us all. What horrible people. The mother-in-law was right. Poor lady, imagine what she went through. Some asked for apologies directly. "Mrs. Margaret, if you read this, I am very sorry. I commented horrible things without knowing the truth. Others doubled their rage, but now directed at Caleb and Brittany. They should rot in jail. Scamming your own mother is the lowest. That couple is trash. The pendulum had changed direction. Now I was the victim, the heroine, the one who saved herself from the trap by instinct, by boundaries, by saying no. But I did not feel like a heroine. I felt empty, because one thing is to suspect they are using you. Another very different thing is to have the confirmation. It is knowing with documents and proofs and newspaper articles that your son stole from you, that he planned to destroy you, that he had a list with your name and the note easy to manipulate next to it, that he was going to leave you in ruin and flee to another country without looking back. The phone rang. Officer James Miller's number. I answered. Mrs. Davis, good morning. Calling to confirm your appointment today at 2 p.m. at the station. Also to inform you that the DA already reviewed the case. They are going to proceed with all charges. Your son and your daughter-in-law will remain detained until the bail hearing. That will be in approximately 72 hours. I thanked him. Confirmed I would be there. One more thing, said the officer. Your son is asking to speak with you. He says he needs to explain to you that everything is a misunderstanding, that Brittany forced him. You are not obligated to see him. But if you want, we can arrange a supervised visit. I stayed quiet, thinking of the 5-year-old Caleb who hugged me when he had nightmares, of the 15-year-old Caleb who helped me with the grocery bags, of the 25-year-old Caleb who introduced me to Brittany and told me he had found the love of his life. When was that Caleb lost? Or did he never really exist? No, I said finally. I do not want to see him. I have nothing to listen to. The officer respected my decision. Understood. I will see you at 2 then. I hung up, and in that moment I knew I had made the hardest decision of my life. Harder than hanging up that morning. Harder than everything. I had closed the door. Forever. At 2 o'clock sharp, I was in front of the police station. A gray building with small windows and bars everywhere. People entering and leaving. Lawyers with briefcases. Families crying. The smell of stale coffee and paper reached the street. I took a deep breath. I entered. Officer James Miller was waiting for me at the front desk. He took me down a long hallway, closed doors on each side, muffled voices, the sound of a printer, a coffee machine dripping. We arrived at a small office, desk full of folders, 2 folding chairs, a window that looked out to an alley. Sit down, please. I am going to bring the documents you need to review. He left. I stayed alone looking at the walls. There were posters about fraud prevention, about identity theft, phone numbers to report crimes, photos of missing persons, destroyed lives stuck with Scotch tape. The officer returned with a thick folder. He opened it on the desk. Here is everything we found. First, the credit cards opened in your name. He showed me documents, applications with my forged signature, my scanned ID, my personal information used without permission, a card from National Bank, $18,340 of debt. Purchases in department stores, electronics, restaurants, hotels. The second card was from Continental Bank, $23,680. More purchases, more restaurants, plane tickets, hotel reservations. A life of luxury built on my stolen identity. Do I have to pay this? I asked with my voice shaking. The officer shook his head. No. Since it is proven identity theft, the banks are going to annul the debts. It is going to take time, paperwork, but you are not responsible. We have all the evidence. Caleb's fingerprints on the applications, IP addresses from his computer, security video of him using the cards. I felt a small relief amidst the disaster. At least I would not end up on the street because of my son's debts. Now, the messages. He showed me printouts of conversations between Caleb and Brittany. I read with growing nausea. I already spoke to my mom. I am going to ask her for another $10,000. She always falls for it. Perfect, baby. Tell her it is for the car down payment. That excuse always works with sentimental old ladies. More messages. Your mom is asking about the wedding money. Ignore her. Eventually, she is going to get tired. You know how she is. She is afraid of losing me. You are a genius, my love. Laughing emoji. Money emoji. As if destroying your mother was a game. As if stealing her life savings was funny. I kept reading. I could not stop, even though every word was a stab. We need a bigger plan. Something that gives us enough to leave. How about the fake medical emergency? Works every time. People do not ask when it is health. Brilliant, but it has to be credible. Photos, drama, social media. Leave it to me. I handle that part. You just worry about getting the money. The officer turned the page. Here is the document we found on his laptop, the one I mentioned yesterday. It was an Excel spreadsheet. Names in column A, relationship in column B, estimated money in column C, difficulty to convince in column D. My name was in row 3, Margaret Davis, mother of Caleb, approximately $35,000 in savings. Difficulty, low. Notes, strong guilt complex. Fear of abandonment. Easy to manipulate with emotional blackmail. The tears fell without permission. Stained the paper. The officer passed me a box of tissues. Take your time. I know it is difficult, but there was not enough time in the world to process this. To accept that your son had studied you like a target, that he had analyzed your weaknesses, that he had written a manual on how to destroy you. There were more names on that list. Catherine Miller, mother of Brittany, approximately $80,000 in inheritance. Difficulty, medium. Notes, strong pride. Use comparison with Margaret to motivate. Need to demonstrate she is a better mother. There was the whole game, pitting us against each other, making us compete, using our maternal love as a weapon against ourselves. There was an uncle of Caleb, Frank Davis. Paternal uncle, approximately $20,000. Difficulty, high. Notes, suspicious. Ask only in real emergency. Do not use emotional stories. And effectively, further down there was a note. Frank refused loan. Do not contact again. At least someone had been smarter than me. There were cousins, friends of the family, even an old neighbor who once had lent Caleb $500. Manuel Torres. Neighbor. $500 lent. Never paid. Avoid contact. A list of victims. Some successful, others failed, but all studied, all cataloged, all turned into numbers and strategies. The officer closed that folder, opened another. Now, the evidence of this week's scam. Photos of Caleb buying a hospital gown in a medical costume store. The receipt. $19.99. That was the price of the lie that almost destroyed 2 families. Photos of the hotel room where they took the photos. Room 212 of the Plaza Hotel, $120 a night. Bill in Caleb's name. The photo Brittany uploaded to social media, but now with forensic analysis. Red circles pointing out details. Here you can see that the background wall is not hospital. It is hotel wallpaper. Here, this corner shows part of a decorative lamp. Hospitals do not have lamps like that. Here, the medical equipment that appears blurry in the background is an IV stand that is bought in prop stores. It is not real equipment. They had dismantled the lie piece by piece, with science, with analysis, with the cold and hard truth. We also have the bank records. The money Catherine transferred entered Caleb's account at 5:15 in the morning. At 6, he made a transfer of $38,000 to an account in Costa Rica. In his name, the other $2,000 he withdrew in cash from an ATM. They had everything. Every movement. Every lie. Every theft documented with legal precision. Mrs. Davis, I need you to sign here. It is your official statement, confirming that you did not authorize the opening of those credit cards, that you did not receive any of the goods purchased with them, that you were a victim of identity theft by your son. Sign. With my hand shaking, with my heart broken. But sign. Here. This is your statement regarding the pattern of financial abuse. The loans never returned. The broken promises. The complete history. Sign again. And this last one. It is your decision on pressing criminal charges. If you sign, you are officially accusing Caleb Davis of identity theft, fraud, and financial abuse. If you do not sign, we will only proceed with the charges presented by Catherine Miller. I stood looking at the paper. The pen suspended in the air. This was the final line. Once I signed this, there was no turning back. My son would go to trial, probably to prison, his life destroyed, his future ruined. I thought about everything, of the 8 years of lies, of the sleepless nights wondering if I was a bad mother for not giving more, of the emptied savings, of the Excel table with my name and the word easy next to it, of the $41,000 of debt that almost buried me, of the plan to flee to Costa Rica leaving me in ruins, of the note guilty old woman that Brittany had written about me. I signed. The officer gathered the papers, put them in the folder. It is done. The charges have been officially presented. The preliminary hearing is on Friday. You can attend if you want. It is not mandatory. I nodded. I did not know if I wanted to be there. See Caleb in handcuffs, listen to his version, his excuses, his attempt to blame Brittany for everything. Can I ask you something? I said. The officer nodded. Did Caleb really say that Brittany forced him? That he did not want to do this? The officer sighed. Yes, that is his defense. He says Brittany manipulated him. That he is a victim too. That she threatened to leave him if he did not get money. That everything was her idea. I laughed. A bitter laugh. Dry. And do you believe him? The officer shook his head. The messages show something else. They show complete complicity. They show that he enjoyed the game, that he celebrated every time they got money. No, ma'am. Your son is as guilty as your daughter-in-law. Maybe she was the brain, but he was the willing executor. He used his relationship with you, his access to your information, his knowledge of your weaknesses. Brittany could not have done any of this without him. That was what I needed to hear. Not to feel better, but to confirm what I already knew. Caleb was not a victim. He was an accomplice, a partner, a criminal who chose to rob his own mother. I left the station 2 hours later, with copies of all the documents, with case numbers, with dates of hearings, with the confirmation that the debts would be annulled, but also with something heavier, with the signature that sent my son to face real justice. The sun was going down, the sky orange and pink, the city preparing for the night. I walked to the bus stop. I sat on the cold metal bench, and for the first time in days, I cried for real, not with rage, not with helplessness, but with pure and simple mother's pain. Because you can do the right thing and still feel like everything is breaking inside you. The bus arrived 20 minutes later. I got on, paid, sat next to the window. A woman with 2 small children sat next to me. The children fought over a toy. She separated them with tiredness in her voice. If you don't calm down, I am going to leave you here. Empty threat. Love disguised as scolding. I had done that same thing with Caleb, thousands of times. Now those children seemed from another planet. From a reality where mothers threaten but never follow through. Where children obey eventually. Where love does not turn into a weapon. I got off at my stop. Walked the 3 blocks to my building. The doorman greeted me. Mr. Michael. He worked there since before I arrived. Mrs. Davis, good to see you. How are you? I said fine. Automatic lie. He nodded without believing but without pressing. I climbed the stairs slowly, 1st floor, 2nd, 3rd. My legs weighed tons. I arrived at my door, put the key in, turned, and there it was again. My small apartment, my refuge, my cell. I did not know which of the 2 things it was. I poured water, sat down, looked at the phone. I had new messages. One from Helen. How did it go? Let me know if you need anything. Another from a distant cousin who hadn't spoken to me in years. Margaret, I just found out about Caleb. How awful. I am here if you need me. Automatic answers. People being kind because tragedy demands kindness. But nobody really understood. Nobody could understand what it feels like when you discover that your son studied you as if you were a research project. The phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated. Answered. Mrs. Margaret Davis? Woman's voice. Formal. Yes, this is Patricia Morales. I am a reporter for the National Daily. We are covering the fraud case involving your son Caleb Davis and your daughter-in-law Brittany Miller. We would like to interview you, tell your version of events, give you a voice. My blood froze. I have nothing to say. Ma'am, I understand it is difficult, but your story can help other people. There are many mothers being manipulated by their children, many families living this in silence. You can make a difference. I squeezed the phone. My life is not content for your newspaper. My pain is not a story of public interest. I am not going to talk to you or to anyone. Leave me alone. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I blocked the number. But 5 minutes later it rang again. Another number. Another reporter. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis. I am from Channel 7 News." I hung up before she finished the sentence. Blocked. Rang again. And again. And again. I turned off the phone, threw it on the sofa, locked myself in my room, lay down looking at the ceiling, listening to the beating of my heart. Each one seemed to say, "Guilty. Guilty. Guilty." Although I knew I was not. Although the documents proved it. Although the police confirmed it. A part of me kept asking, at what moment did I lose him? When did Caleb go from being my boy to being this? Was it when I overprotected him? Was it when I gave him everything without teaching him the value of work? Was it when I divorced his father and he grew up without a father figure? Was it my fault in the end? I fell asleep without meaning to. When I woke up, it was already night, the room dark, heavy silence. I turned on the light, got up, went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator. There was little. Expired yogurt, half a tomato, 2 eggs. I closed the door. I was not hungry anyway. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the table, and that was when I saw it. A white envelope under the door. Someone had slid it while I slept. I picked it up. It had no name, no sender, only my name written by hand with black marker. Margaret. I opened it slowly. A letter. Cursive handwriting. I recognized the writing immediately. It was from Catherine. "Margaret, I know you do not want to talk to me, and I understand. I came to your door 2 days ago like an idiot, full of rage, full of accusations. Believing every lie my daughter sold me, I kept reading. I have no excuses. I should have listened to you. I should have investigated. I should have seen the signs, but I was blind. Blind with pride. Blind with that stupid desire to be the best mother, the most generous, the most loved. And Brittany used that against me. Just like Caleb used your kindness against you." The handwriting became more irregular, as if she were crying while writing. "I lost $40,000, money my husband left for my old age, money that was for real emergencies, and I threw it in the trash believing I was saving my daughter. But the worst is not the money, Margaret. The worst is realizing that my daughter saw me as a source of income, that she had a list with my name, with my weaknesses written as if I were a target practice. Old, proud woman, easy to manipulate with jealousy. That is what she wrote about me, her mother." I swallowed saliva, kept reading. "I went to see her today in jail. I thought she would be remorseful, that she would cry, that she would ask for forgiveness. But no, she arrived calm, annoyed, as if I had ruined her plans. The first thing she told me was, 'Mom, I need a lawyer, a good one. It is going to cost you about $50,000, but you can ask Uncle Frank to lend it to you. Not even a hello, not even an I'm sorry, just more demands, more plans on how to use the family.'" The letter continued. "I told her no, that I was not going to pay any lawyer, that she sought this out herself. Do you know what she told me? She told me, 'Then I am going to tell the judge that you knew everything, that you were an accomplice, that you forced me to do it. You are going to end up in jail with me, you stupid old woman.' That was my daughter, the girl I raised, the one I carried 9 months, the one I nursed. She threatened to destroy me if I did not save her." The tears stained the ink, stained my hands. I left there and drove aimlessly for 2 hours, crying, screaming, hating myself for being so blind, for competing with you instead of seeing that both of us were victims, for believing that giving more money made me a better mother, when the only thing I did was raise a woman without values, without conscience, without real love. Catherine ended with this: "I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I only write to you so you know that I understand, that I finally see, and that if you ever need to talk to someone who understands this specific hell, I am here. We both lost our children, in different ways, but just as definitive. And maybe in that, we can find something. Not friendship, not yet, but understanding. Catherine." I folded the letter. I left it on the table. I stayed looking at it as if it were a deactivated bomb. Catherine had lived exactly the same as me, worse even, because I had refused to give the money. She had given it. She had fallen into the complete trap, and now she was just like me, alone, betrayed, destroyed inside. The difference was that she had been my imaginary enemy for years, the perfect mother, the generous one, the one who always had more to give. It turned out that both of us were victims of the same game, pawns on the same board, manipulated by two people who swore to love us, but only saw us as resources. I got up, walked to the balcony, opened the door. The cold night air hit me. The city shone below, yellow and white lights, cars passing, people living normal lives, lives without criminal children, without letters from other broken mothers. And I thought about answering her, about going down to the 5th floor and knocking on her door, about sitting with coffee and crying together. Two women who gave everything and received betrayal. But not that night. That night I needed to be alone with my pain, process it, accept it, let it settle in my bones. Tomorrow maybe, or the day after, or never. I did not know. I only knew that something had changed with that letter. It was no longer just my tragedy. It was our tragedy. And in some twisted way, that made the weight a little more bearable. I closed the balcony, turned off the lights, went to bed, and for the first time in days, I slept without dreaming, without nightmares, just deep and empty darkness, like a reboot, like dying a little to be able to wake up different. Friday arrived faster than I expected. Day of the preliminary hearing. I had not decided if I was going to go. I woke up at 6 in the morning, made coffee, sat in the kitchen with the steaming cup between my hands, watching through the window as dawn broke. The sky went from black to gray to that pale pink color that announces the day, and I still had not decided. Did I want to see Caleb? Did I want to listen to his excuses? Did I want to give him the satisfaction of knowing that I still cared enough to go? Or maybe I needed to see him, confirm with my own eyes that this was real, that my son really was behind glass, handcuffed, accused, destroyed by his own decisions. At 8 I showered, dressed in simple clothes, black pants, gray blouse, comfortable shoes, nothing flashy, nothing that shouted here is the mother of the accused. I took the bus at 9, arrived at the courthouse at 10. The building was old, stone columns, steps worn by thousands of feet, people everywhere, lawyers in expensive suits, nervous families, police officers, reporters with cameras. I looked for the courtroom number 4, 2nd floor. I climbed the stairs, heart beating fast, hands sweating. Outside the courtroom there were people waiting. I recognized some people. Relatives of Brittany I had seen at their wedding. They looked at me with contempt. An aunt whose name I did not remember murmured something to another woman. Both fixed their eyes on me. I kept my gaze to the front. I did not owe them explanations. I did not owe them anything. And then I saw her, Catherine, sitting on a bench at the end of the hallway, alone, in a black dress, without jewelry, without makeup. She looked 10 years older than the last time I saw her. Our gazes met. For a second I thought she would look away, that she would pretend not to see me. But no, she stood up, walked toward me, slowly, as if every step cost her. She stopped 3 feet away. "You came," she said with a low voice. I nodded. "You too." Uncomfortable silence. "Did you receive my letter?" "Yes." More silence. She did not expect an answer. "I just wanted you to know." I swallowed saliva. "Thank you for writing it." I did not know what to say. "I still don't know." Catherine nodded. "I understand. I don't know what to say either. What to do? How to process all this?" She touched her necklace. Nervous gesture. "I never thought we would end up here. The two of us, waiting to see our children be judged as criminals." The word fell heavy between us. Criminals. That is what they were now. The doors of the courtroom opened. A bailiff shouted, "Case number 743, State versus Caleb Davis and Brittany Miller. All involved, please enter." People started to go in. Catherine looked at me. We entered together. I hesitated, but something made me nod. We entered side by side, two destroyed mothers walking together toward the worst moment of their lives. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Rows of wooden benches, a high bench where the judge would sit, tables for prosecutors and defenders, and at the front, a side door where they would bring the accused. I sat in the 3rd row. Catherine sat next to me. The prosecutor entered, man of about 50, dark gray suit, Leather briefcase. Serious expression. Behind him, his assistant with a box full of documents. Then the defense lawyers entered. 2 young men, cheap suits, faces of recent graduates, public defenders, probably. Because Caleb and Brittany had no money to pay for private defense, everything they had was frozen, confiscated, evidence. They sat at their table, took out folders, exchanged whispers, and then they brought them in. Side door opening. Officer first, then Caleb, orange prison uniform, handcuffs on his wrists, chains on his ankles. He walked with his head down, unwashed hair, 3-day beard. He looked thinner, older, more broken. Behind him, Brittany, same uniform, same handcuffs, but she walked differently, with her chin up, with that arrogance that had never left her. They sat him at the defense table. Caleb looked around, his eyes scanned the rows, searching, and he found me. He froze, opened his mouth as if to say something. I did not move a muscle. I did not change my expression. I looked at him like one looks at a stranger, and something in him broke. I saw how his eyes filled with tears, how his face fell, as he finally understood that I had come but not for him. I came for me, to close the cycle. Brittany also saw me, and then she saw her mother. Her expression changed, from arrogance to anger. She glared at us, as if we were the guilty ones of her situation, as if we had put them there. She said something to Caleb. He shook his head. She insisted. He turned to the front, ignoring her. "All rise!" shouted the bailiff. The judge entered, woman of about 60, black robe, white hair tied back, glasses on the tip of her nose. She sat down. "You may be seated." The noise of everyone sitting at the same time. Case 743, State versus Caleb Davis and Brittany Miller. Prosecution ready? Yes, Your Honor. Defense ready? Yes, Your Honor. The judge reviewed documents. Very well. This is a preliminary hearing. The purpose is to determine if probable cause exists to proceed to trial. Prosecution. Proceed with your summary of charges. The prosecutor stood up, cleared his throat. Your Honor, the state accuses Mr. Davis and Miss Miller of multiple charges. First, fraud in the first degree for obtaining $40,000 under false pretenses. Second, extortion for threatening consequences if the money was not delivered. Third, identity theft for opening lines of credit without consent. Fourth, use of social media to commit fraud. He paused. We have extensive evidence, text messages, emails, financial documents, surveillance video, testimonies from multiple victims. The defendants operated a fraud scheme for at least 2 years. They defrauded close relatives of over $120,000, and they planned to flee the country when they were detained. The judge took notes. Does the defense have anything to say? One of the young lawyers stood up. Nervous. Your Honor, my client Caleb Davis acknowledges errors in judgment, but we argue that he was manipulated by the co-defendant Brittany Miller. She exercised coercive control over him, threatened him constantly. My client is also a victim. The judge looked at him skeptically. Do you have evidence of that manipulation? The lawyer hesitated. We are working on gathering testimonies. The other lawyer stood up, the one representing Brittany. Your Honor, my client denies the charges. She simply trusted her husband. She had no knowledge of the extent of the fraudulent activities. She was deceived just like the alleged victims. The judge stopped writing, looked at the lawyer over her glasses. Are you telling me that your client did not know that her own mother gave her $40,000 for a surgery that never occurred? The lawyer swallowed saliva. My client was under severe emotional pressure. She was not thinking clearly. The judge sighed. That is not a legal defense. That is an excuse. She addressed the prosecutor. When is the full evidence ready? It can be available for review in 72 hours, Your Honor. Good. I am going to review the submitted documents. But based on what I heard today, there seems to be sufficient probable cause. The judge turned toward Caleb and Brittany. Mr. Davis, Miss Miller, do you understand the charges against you? Caleb nodded. Brittany stayed quiet. Her lawyer touched her arm. Yes, Your Honor, she said finally. Good. This case will proceed to trial. The date will be determined after reviewing the availability of both parties. Now, regarding bail, The prosecutor stood up. Your Honor, the state requests that bail not be granted. The defendants are a flight risk. They had tickets purchased to leave the country. Caleb's lawyer protested. Your Honor, my client has community ties. His mother is here present. All eyes turned toward me. I felt the heat rise up my neck. The judge looked at me. Are you the mother of the defendant? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor. Are you willing to guarantee his appearance? Offer your property as collateral. The moment froze, everyone waiting for my answer. Caleb looking at me with pleading eyes, his lawyer nodding as if begging me to say yes. I took a deep breath. No, Your Honor, I am not willing. Absolute silence in the courtroom. The lawyer stood with his mouth open. Caleb let his head fall on the table. Brittany cursed in a low voice. The lawyer tried to recover. Your Honor, we can look for other guarantors. The judge shook her head. With proven flight risk and without family guarantee, I deny bail. The defendants will remain detained until the trial. She banged the gavel. Next hearing in 30 days. Court is adjourned. She got up, left through the back door. The officers approached Caleb and Brittany, lifted them from the chairs. Caleb turned toward me. Mom, please, he shouted. Mom, don't do this to me. I am your son. His voice breaking, tears running down his face. Mom, please. The officers were dragging him toward the side door. Mom, I beg you. I did not move a muscle. I said nothing. I watched him disappear behind that door, his screams still echoing. And then it closed. Silence again. People started to leave. Catherine was still sitting next to me, crying silently. I was not crying. I couldn't. I had spent all my tears. Only this emptiness remained, this hole where a son used to be. We left the court without speaking to each other. Catherine and I walked together, but separate, each in her bubble of pain. We went down the stairs, crossed the big doors, and outside the circus awaited us. Reporters with cameras, microphones extending toward us like claws. Mrs. Davis, how do you feel after denying bail to your son? Mrs. Miller, did you know your daughter planned this? Flashes, shouts, questions upon questions. Catherine covered her face. I took her by the arm. Don't say anything. Walk. We pushed our way through the crowd. Someone pushed me. A camera almost hit my face. Please let us pass. But it was like swimming against the current. Finally, we reached the street. The reporters still following us, shouting behind. Just a statement. A photo. 5 minutes of your time. We hailed a taxi. Got in. Drive, please, I told the driver. Fast. He took off. The reporters were left behind, gesturing, taking photos of the taxi. Running a few steps behind before giving up, Catherine was shaking next to me. My God, this is a nightmare. I looked out the window. It is already public. Now everyone knows. Our names, our faces, our shame. The driver looked at us in the mirror. With curiosity, with judgment. Probably had already recognized us. Probably tomorrow he would tell his family that he had the mothers of the scammers in his taxi, that we looked destroyed, that one of them was shaking. We became an anecdote, a story to tell. In that moment, something inside me surrendered. Take us to any quiet cafe, please, I told him. One where there are not many people. The driver nodded, drove 10 minutes, parked in front of a small place, with foggy windows, old letters painted on the glass. Peter's Cafe. Hardly anyone comes here. It is my secret when I need peace. I paid him double what the meter showed. Thank you. Have a good day, ladies. We entered the cafe. Smell of fresh bread, scratched wooden tables, instrumental music playing softly. There were only 3 other people. An old man reading the newspaper, a young couple sharing a dessert, the waiter. We sat at the back table, next to a dirty window that looked out to an alley. The waiter approached. What can I get you? 2 coffees, I said, and whatever pastry you have. He left. Catherine took off her dark glasses. Her eyes were swollen, red. I cannot believe you did it. She looked at me. That you said no to the judge, that you left Caleb there. I held her gaze. What did you expect? That I would put up my house as collateral? Risk the little I have left for someone who planned to destroy me? Catherine lowered her eyes. You are right. I wouldn't have done it either. In fact, when they asked me about Brittany, I said the same thing. No. The waiter brought the coffees, 2 large cups, steaming, and a plate with 3 pieces of sweet bread. He left without saying anything, intuiting that we needed silence. I drank my coffee. It burned. But I liked that small pain. Something I could control. Caleb shouted my name. I said after a while. I heard him begging me, calling me Mom like when he was a child. And I felt nothing. Catherine stirred her coffee without drinking. Brittany said nothing, just looked at me with hatred. As if I were the one who ruined her life. As if I had forced her to do all this. Silence. The old man turned a page of his newspaper. The young couple laughed quietly. Normal lives, meters away. How did we get here, Margaret? Asked Catherine. How did 2 women who only wanted to be good mothers end up in this? I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe we loved them too much, or maybe we loved them wrong. We gave them so much that we forgot to teach them to give. We resolved everything for them until they stopped knowing how to resolve for themselves. Catherine nodded slowly. I bought everything for Brittany, everything she asked for. I thought that way she would love me more. That way she would never leave me. But I only managed to raise a woman who believes the world owes her everything. She drank her coffee finally, grimaced. It is cold already. She drank it anyway. Caleb was my only son, I said. His father abandoned us when he was 7. I became mom and dad. Worked double, triple, so he wouldn't lack anything. To compensate for the absence, and now I understand that was my mistake. I didn't let him feel lack. I didn't teach him that things cost. That money is earned. That sacrifice has value. Catherine wiped a tear. We are the perfect villains for our children. They are in jail because of our failures. That is how they are going to justify it. My mom never really loved me. My mom was controlling. My mom conditioned her love. Anything but accept that they chose to steal, that they planned to destroy us, that they are adults responsible for their decisions. She was right, and that hurt more than anything. The DA called me yesterday, said Catherine. He told me the trial will be in 2 months, that they need time to prepare the case, that it is complex because there are multiple victims, multiple charges. He asked me if I was willing to testify. I looked at her. What did you say? I said yes, that I am going to tell everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every time Brittany asked me for money with invented stories. She took a deep breath, because if I don't do it, they are going to get away with it. They are going to receive minimum sentences. They are going to get out in a few years and are going to do the same thing to other people. I nodded. They asked me to testify too, about the credit cards, about the identity theft, about the years of financial abuse. I paused. I am going to do it. I am going to stand in front of the judge and tell how my son robbed me, how he studied me, how he put me on a list with my weaknesses marked. I am going to say everything, even if it destroys me. Catherine extended her hand over the table. I took it. 2 wrinkled hands, trembling, but firm in their decision. They are going to hate us for this, she said. The family, the friends, the people who believe mothers should forgive everything, that they should protect their children no matter what. I squeezed her hand. Let them hate us. I am already used to it. We stayed like that a moment. 2 women holding the broken pieces of one another. The waiter approached. Anything else? We shook our heads. I paid. We went out together into the afternoon. The sun was high. Noon. Life kept happening. People walking, shopping, laughing, existing in a world that for us had exploded. Do you want to walk a while? Asked Catherine. I nodded. We walked aimlessly. Blocks and blocks, past shops, small parks, old buildings. We talked about unimportant things, the weather, a bakery that smelled good, a stray dog sleeping under a car, avoiding talking about the important thing because there were no more words for that. We arrived at a park, sat on a bench under a large tree. There were children playing on the swings, a mom pushing a stroller, a man selling ice cream, scenes of normal life. Do you know what is weirdest? Said Catherine, looking at the children. That part of me still wants to protect her. I still feel that mom impulse to save her, to pay the lawyer, to get her out of this, even though I know I shouldn't, even though I know she would destroy me again without hesitating. I understood perfectly. It is the instinct. Years and years programmed to protect, to resolve, to rescue. It doesn't turn off from one day to the next, even if reason tells you you must. Catherine nodded. How are we supposed to live with this? How do we move forward knowing our children are in prison? That they are probably going to be there for years? That their lives are ruined? I stayed thinking. Watching a girl chasing butterflies, laughing every time one escaped her. I think we keep breathing, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and eventually the pain becomes smaller. It doesn't disappear, but it stops being the only thing we feel. Catherine wiped another tear. Do you really believe that? I have to believe it, because the alternative is staying in that dark place forever, and they do not deserve that power over me. We stayed in that park until the sun began to go down, until the children left with their parents, until the ice cream seller put away his cart, until the cold of the afternoon made us get up. I should go, said Catherine. Me too. We looked at each other, no longer as enemies, no longer as competitors, but as survivors of the same shipwreck. Thank you for today, she said. For walking with me, for not letting me be alone with this. Thank you, I said, for the letter, for the honesty, for sitting next to me in court. Catherine took out her phone. Can I have your number? Not to talk all the time, just to know there is someone there who understands. I gave her my number. She gave me hers. We said goodbye with an awkward hug, still learning how to be something resembling friends. Each took her path. I walked toward the bus stop, with aching feet, with my heart still broken, but with something new too, something I hadn't felt in weeks. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't peace. It was more like acceptance, like letting go, like finally understanding that this was my new reality, and I had to learn to live in it. 2 months passed like thick fog, days that mixed one with another. The trial arrived on a cold October morning. I had prepared mentally for weeks, rehearsing my testimony in front of the mirror, writing and deleting, crying in the shower where nobody saw me. Catherine and I had texted a few times, nothing deep, just how are you? And I'm still here. Simple words for complicated pains. On the day of the trial, I arrived early. Same courtroom, same wooden bench. But this time there were more people. Journalists filling the back rows, curious onlookers. The prosecutor had explained everything to me the week before. The charges, the evidence. My turn to speak. Just tell the truth, Mrs. Davis. That is all we need. As if the truth were simple. As if every word didn't hurt. Caleb and Brittany entered same as before. Orange uniforms, handcuffs, chains. But they looked different, more haggard, more defeated. 2 months in pretrial detention had erased that arrogance. Caleb looked for me with his gaze again. This time, I didn't give him even that. I looked ahead, as if I were one more piece of furniture in the room. Brittany stared fixedly at her lawyer. Probably they had fought. Probably she blamed him for everything. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of testimonies, of evidence, of documents projected on a large screen for everyone to see the list. My name there. Guilty old woman. Easy to manipulate. Has savings. The murmur in the room when they showed it. The looks of pity directed toward me. I kept my head high. I wasn't going to give them my shame too. Catherine testified the first day. They called her to the stand. She walked slowly, sat down, swore to tell the truth, and she told it. All of it. Told about the $40,000, about the desperate call, about believing her daughter was dying. Her voice broke several times. The judge gave her time. Brittany looked at her with pure hatred, as if Catherine were the traitor. Catherine finished saying, I loved my daughter. I would have given my life for her, but she only wanted my money. And when you understand that as a mother, when you accept that your child sees you as an object, something breaks forever. It was my turn to testify the second day. When they said my name, my legs almost didn't support me. I walked to the stand, sat down, the cold Bible under my hand. Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do. The prosecutor approached. Kind, prepared. Mrs. Davis, can you tell us what is your relationship with the defendant Caleb Davis? I am his mother. And can you tell us about the loans you made to your son during his marriage? I took a deep breath. Started speaking. I told about the $18,000 for the wedding, the $8,000 for the car, the $12,000 for the down payment, every loan, every broken promise, every "I'm going to pay you back, Mom" that was never fulfilled. The prosecutor showed the documents, my bank statements, the transfers, everything marked, everything proven. Did your son pay back any of these loans? No. None. And did you know that he had opened credit cards in your name? I didn't know until the police informed me. It was $41,000 in debts I never made, purchases I never authorized, my credit destroyed without me knowing. The prosecutor nodded. And how did you feel when you discovered your son had you on a list? That he had written your weaknesses to manipulate you better? The tears arrived without permission. I felt like an object, like something that is studied and used, not like his mother, not like a person. The defense lawyer had his turn, tried to make me look like the cruel mother. Isn't it true that you abandoned your son emotionally after your divorce? It is not true. Isn't it true that you conditioned your love on the money he asked you for? It is not true. I gave everything I had because I loved him. Not because I wanted to control him, the lawyer insisted. But I didn't yield. Every question I answered with the truth, without embellishments, without excuses. When I stepped down from the stand, my legs were shaking. I sat down. Catherine squeezed my hand. The rest of the testimonies passed in a blur. Financial experts. Officer James Miller explaining the investigation. The secondary victims. A cousin who had lost $6,000. An aunt who lent $4,000. All with the same story. Promises. Invented emergencies. Money never returned. The third day was closing arguments. The prosecutor was direct. These two people operated a systematic fraud scheme. They studied their victims, manipulated them, destroyed them. It wasn't a mistake. It was a plan that lasted years, a plan that would have continued if we hadn't stopped them. The state asks for the maximum sentence, not just for justice for the victims, but to send the message that this type of crime will not be tolerated. That family is not an excuse for abuse. Caleb's lawyer tried the manipulation angle. My client is the victim of a controlling woman. Brittany Miller wrapped him in this. He only wanted to please her, maintain his marriage. Yes, he made mistakes, grave mistakes, but he is not a criminal at heart. He is a weak man who made terrible decisions for love. I felt like screaming. Caleb wasn't weak. He was an accomplice. He was calculating. He was just as guilty. Brittany's lawyer tried something different. My client suffers from emotional dependence, was raised in an environment where money equaled love, learned destructive patterns. She is not a criminal. She is a sick woman who needs treatment, not prison. Catherine gritted her teeth next to me. I just shook my head. Excuses, justifications, anything but accept the truth. The jury retired to deliberate. They took 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting in that cold room, of drinking bad machine coffee, of walking in circles in the hallway, of messages from Helen asking what was happening. Finally, they returned. We all went back to the courtroom. The jury entered. Serious faces, impossible to read. Has the jury reached a verdict? Asked the judge. Yes, Your Honor. The jury foreman stood up, paper trembling in his hands. In the case of the state versus Caleb Davis, on the charge of fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of extortion, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, guilty. Every word fell like a hammer. Caleb let his head fall on the table, his shoulders shaking. In the case of the state versus Brittany Miller, on the charge of fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of extortion, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, guilty. On the charge of use of electronic means to defraud, guilty. Brittany screamed. This is unfair. You don't understand anything. The judge banged the gavel. Order in the court. The officers held Brittany. She kept screaming, cursing, blaming everyone but herself. The judge waited for her to calm down. Sentencing will be in 2 weeks. Until then, the defendants will remain detained. She banged the gavel again. Court is adjourned. And so it ended. 3 days of trial summarized in a repeated word. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I left that court with Catherine, this time without reporters, without cameras. We were no longer news. We were just two women who had survived. "It's over," said Catherine in the street. It ended. I nodded. Yes, it ended. We hugged. A real hug this time, of relief, of shared pain, of having arrived together at the end. "What are you going to do now?" she asked me. I shrugged. "Live. Try to live without this hanging over me." 2 weeks later was the sentencing. I didn't go. I didn't need to be there. Catherine didn't go either. They sent us a message from the DA. Caleb received 8 years. Brittany received 10 for being considered the leader of the scheme. 8 years. 10 years. Numbers that meant nothing and meant everything. My son would spend the next 8 years in prison. He would get out at 43. A whole life lost to greed. I moved 3 months after the trial, sold my condo. That place had too many ghosts, too many memories of late-night calls, of lies, of being studied like a project. I bought something smaller, in another city, 2 hours south, near the ocean. A quiet town where nobody knew me, where I could be just Margaret. Not the mother of the scammer, just Margaret. Catherine helped me with the move. We had become something resembling friends, not the friends who call every day, but the ones who understand. The ones who can sit together in silence, and that silence isn't awkward. She also moved to a smaller apartment, donated most of Brittany's things, expensive clothes, designer shoes, all to charity. "I don't want anything that reminds me of her," she told me. I understood perfectly. My new life is simple. I wake up with the sun. I walk on the beach every morning. I read books I had put off for years. I took painting classes even though I have no talent. I became friends with my neighbors without telling them my story. For them, I am just the quiet lady from apartment 3 who always says hello. And I like that freedom, of being nobody special, of not carrying my tragedy as a badge. Sometimes I think about Caleb, about how he is in prison. If he finally understood, if he regrets for real, or only the fact of getting caught. I haven't written to him. He sent me 3 letters, all unopened. I keep them in a box in the closet. Maybe one day I'll read them. Maybe not. For now, I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. And I've learned that's okay, that I don't have to forgive to heal, that I can move forward with the pain still there, smaller every day, but there. Catherine comes to visit me once a month. We sit on my balcony. We drink wine. We look at the ocean. We talk about everything except them, about our new neighbors, about the classes we take, about the life we are building from the ashes. And in those moments, I feel something resembling peace. Not complete peace, not perfect happiness, but the feeling that I am going to be okay, that the worst has passed, that I survived. Yesterday was my birthday, 68 years. Catherine brought me a small cake. We ate it on the balcony watching the sunset, the sky orange and pink, the waves breaking softly on the beach. And for the first time in years, I didn't wish for anything when blowing out the candle. I didn't ask for Caleb to change. I didn't ask to be able to turn back time. I just breathed and gave thanks for being here, free, far away, alive. Finally, after everything, finally free.